Thanks for joining us. And today we're going to talk about 5 top questions in Kriya Yoga. Question 1, do you need a teacher in Kriya Yoga? Well, the answer to that really is that we need to look at what is the function of the teacher in Kriya Yoga. And there's a few things in Kriya Yoga that the teacher is a function for. One is to provide an accurate depiction of the teachings to the student. So this is absolutely necessary. There are some folks out there who learn Kriya Yoga from a variety of different sources. They may learn it from an online correspondence course. That is one of the particular lineages of Kriya Yoga. Another is that folks may have a particular description of the Kriya Yoga techniques that they've gotten from somebody else. The challenge with these approaches in learning Kriya Yoga is that you don't really have a source of feedback for your development, for learning. And if you don't have a source of feedback, somebody to help you understand what is happening during Kriya Yoga, whether or not you're doing it correctly and getting the results that you actually want, well, what's going to happen is that you just don't know. And if you don't know what you're doing in Kriya Yoga, you don't know if you're doing it right or if you're doing it wrong. Now, there are a few, indicators that we know that have been given to us by Lahiri Baba, the originator of Kriya Yoga, such that 12 Kriya Yoga or 12 practices of Kriya Pranayama equals pratyahara, internalization. So those are good benchmarks, but as a student learning Kriya Yoga, it can be very helpful to have a connection with a teacher who can give you feedback on your practice. But it has to be a teacher that can actually help you. So there are some lineages where people don't get much interaction with the teacher at all. And this really doesn't provide a lot of benefit. So you lose a lot of that teacher-student relationship, right? So that's really, I would say, essential for success in Kriya Yoga, is having that relationship and having the correct teachings, an accurate depiction of what Lahiri Baba, the originator of Kriya Yoga, provided to his students. Question 2, how long should you practice Kriya Yoga every day? When you're initially learning Kriya Yoga, there's a lot of layers of Kriya that get built on top of each other. So the amount that you practice is really in mastering those particular methods put together. So there's a learning process that needs to take place. You can't get Kriya Yoga, or probably most people, including myself, can't get Kriya Yoga right off the bat of learning the technique. You need to learn it in layers and add them together, start to become comfortable with the technique. So when you're practicing initially, I would say that you want to practice for probably 20 to 30 minutes per session. And my recommendation is to do that a couple of times a day. Now, this requires time, and so you need to make that as part of your life. You need to make it a priority in your life because you will get benefit from it. So, you need to put work into it. But there are some people that say you need to meditate in Kriya Yoga for like 2 to 3 hours a day and so on. I don't think that's necessary. And also, it's not advisable for people who are starting out. You would really want to build up to that. And certainly with myself, I've gone through periods where I've done intensive practice of Kriya Yoga, where I'm doing Kriya Pranayama and associated practices on that for like 2 hours, and then sitting in Paravasta, the after effect poised state of Kriya afterwards, and going into deeper meditation. But you would really have to build up to that intensity. It should fit with your lifestyle, it should be balanced, and you don't want your practice to be excessive. You want it to support your spiritual life, not to be something that you dread doing because you have to do, 144 Kriyas twice a day kind of thing. So, it needs to be balanced. Third question, how many Kriyas should you do? Well, the recommendation from my perspective is, at least when you're starting out, is to do at least 24 starting out. If you're learning Kriya Yoga initially, you may need to build up to that a little bit, but once you get the technique of Kriya Pranayama, 24 is a good baseline. And then when you start to refine your technique, you find that you can start to expand your numbers of Kriyas. Normally in Kriya Yoga, they expand your numbers of Kriyas in sets of 12. So if you're starting with 24 and that's going on for a few months, and maybe you add another 12, so you're doing 36 Kriyas. But it's not just about the numbers of Kriyas, because there are people who do lots and lots of repetitions of Kriya, but they don't get internalized. And the reason often is because their technique is lacking in efficiency. So you really want to be constantly refining your technique, meaning that you're getting internalized in Kriya Yoga from doing 12 Kriya, which is about 5 minutes. So if you're not getting that response in Kriya Yoga, you really want to refine your practice. So it's not just about quantity, it's also about quality. Quality and quantity go hand in hand in Kriya Yoga. So question number 4, how are chakras used in Kriya Yoga? Well, they are used in a process of Om Japa. You're using a process of mentally chanting Om in the chakras, and that is incorporated in Kriya Pranayama. And so with the chakras, it is really an essential component of Kriya Pranayama. And there are some Kriya Yoga schools that don't include Om Japa in the chakras as part of their Kriya Pranayama technique. And it's really a spinal breathing pranayama, you know, with the idea of trying to get mentally inside the spine and this kind of thing. But that's not the way that Lahiri Baba taught. He used Om Japa in Kriya Pranayama. There's a couple of letters that he wrote to his students that said that Kriya Pranayama without Om Japa is tamasic, meaning that it's going to yield negative results. What we talk about is this excessive activation of Kundalini through spinal breathing pranayama, and people will often experience uncomfortable sensations in their bodies. So for example, myself, when I was doing practices that really stimulated Kundalini without using the chakras, without using Om Japa in the chakras, what would happen is I would often get these very intensive sensations in my head and sometimes in my body where I felt like I was going to burst out of my skin kind of thing. It was very uncomfortable, and this is what we typically talk about when we talk about Kundalini syndrome. Now, there are some particular types of yogic practices that stimulate the Kundalini excessively without balancing it. And sometimes, in a good scenario, you can feel lots of energy flowing up. But the problem is it's not balanced. So using Om Japa in the chakras helps to balance the Kundalini, and then you can be very relaxed but also be activated. So you feel grounded in your body, comfortable, activated, internally concentrated, but it's harmonious. So that's what Kriya Yoga really brings, is that balance with the Om Japa as part of the Kriya Pranayama. And if you don't do that, there's a whole host of problems. So it has a real vital role. And if you're in a Kriya Yoga lineage that doesn't have the use of Om Japa in pranayama, you really need to add it, because it will help to balance your practice out. Question 5, is initiation necessary in Kriya Yoga? Well, we have to look and see what initiation actually is. There are some particular Kriya Yoga lineages that use a very ritualistic formula for initiation, with the idea that the guru is imparting their power on the student and that the student cannot do their Kriya Yoga practice without the Shaktipat, the power from the guru. From my perspective, that this is incorrect. What you need to actually do is to learn how to do the practice correctly, because when the practice is done correctly, it will yield results. So hence, if one does the original Kriya Yoga as taught by Lahiri Baba and is reflected in certain lineages, you are getting initiation through doing the practice. It isn't the teacher that is giving you Shaktipat to empower you. What it is you following the simple instructions of the teacher to actually use the foolproof technique to get results. So the initiation is in the practice itself. Now, certainly people can go through some kind of initiation process because it helps to uplift the mind if people feel there's a sense of sacredness in that relationship with the teacher, and they may provide a particular gift for the teacher, and they sit down together and meditate. But it isn't the teacher that is creating the results for the student. It is the student following the instructions, following the simple instructions with the actual correct practice that brings on those results. And that really is the true initiation, right? It's like the inner initiation. Everything else that's, more ritualistic and so on, it's an external representation of it. It's a symbolic representation, but it is not the actual initiation itself. So that's what I say when people ask me, is there a formal initiation ceremony? I say, well, the initiation is actually in the practice. And when you learn the practice and you get into the stream of that, you will know that you've been initiated in Kriya Yoga. So if you have any questions about this video, feel free to send me an email at info@modernkriya.com. Also check our website at modernkriya.com and our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.